Hello and welcome to the presentation video of results from Ireland's Labour Force Survey, or LFS, for Q2 2025. The LFS is a household survey carried out by the Central Statistics Office and is the official source for employment and unemployment estimates in Ireland. The official labour market classification of respondents to the survey is based on International Labour Organization, or ILO, concepts and definitions. And you can find out more information about the survey from our website or by contacting us at labour@cso.ie. The published infographic for Q2 is shown in this slide and presents selected LFS results for the quarter. The estimated number of people in the labour force, employment, as well as those unemployed in Q2 for the last 6 years is shown on the left. The number of people in the labour force stood at just over a record 2,958,000. That's up 2.5% on Q2 2024. Similarly, the estimated number of people in employment was a record 2,818,000, up 2.3% on last year. The estimated number of people unemployed was over 140,000, up 7.3% on the previous year, resulting in an unemployment rate of 4.8%. The youth unemployment rate for those aged 15 to 24 was 13.2%, which is the highest figure since Q2 2021. Employment in the construction sector was 190,300, up 29,600, while information and communication declined 7,700 to 179,500. The 10-year trend in labour status estimates in 2-year intervals is shown in this slide. The number of persons in employment is 770,000 more now than 10 years ago, an increase of more than 37%. The number of persons unemployed has fallen from just over 230,000 10 years ago to 140,000 this quarter. The standard unemployment rate for persons aged 15 to 74 has fallen from 10.3% to 4.8% in those 10 years. Persons outside the labour force is higher now by about 95,000. The overall height of each bar reflects the estimated population aged 15 and over for that quarter, and this has also increased by 770,000 people in 10 years. Focusing now on the results for employment in Q2, the estimate for number of people in employment was 2,818,100, an increase of 63,900, or 2.3% compared with Q2 2024. The employment rate for persons aged 15 to 64 is 74.7%. That's up 0.3 percentage points relative to a year ago. The seasonal adjusted estimate for the number of people in employment in Q2 was more than 2.8 million, increasing by just 3,600, or 0.1% compared to the last quarter, Q1 2025. The slide here shows the change in employment rates for males and females in the year. The employment rate for males in Q2 2025 was 78.5%, up 0.4 percentage points from 78.1% a year ago, while the employment rate for females stood at 71.0% this quarter, up from 70.8% this time last year. The chart in this slide presents the employment for different age groups for Q2 2024 and 25. The number of persons in employment has increased in all age categories since last year. Youth employment for persons aged 15 to 24 has increased by just 600 in the year to Q2 2025, the lowest among all age cohorts. The highest increases were among the 45 to 54-year-olds and 55 to 64-year-old age categories, which increased by 26,000 and 13,900 respectively. The chart in this slide presents the annual change in employment rate by age groups. While employment volume increased for all age cohorts, the employment rate declined for younger age groups. The youth employment rate for persons aged 15 to 24 has decreased by 1.0 percentage points to 46.7%, while it declined 0.8 percentage points to 83.5% for the 25 to 34-year-olds in the year to Q2 2025. The highest increases were among the 45 to 54-year-old categories, which increased by 1.3 percentage points to 85.1%. The 10-year trend in full-time and part-time employment in 2-year intervals is shown in this slide. The number of full-time workers and part-time workers increased over a 10-year period to Q2 2025. The highest increase in percentage terms was for full-time employment, which increased 41.7%, or almost 660,000. Total part-time employment rose by 23.8% over the same period. The chart in this slide shows the top growing industrial sectors, or NACE classification, by employment volume growth in Q2 2025, with a year ago. The construction sector had the largest increase, adding 29,600 jobs, an increase of 18.4%. This was followed by human health and social activity, which increased by 14,500 or 3.9%, and education, which increased 9,500 or 4.1%. This slide shows the bottom sectors by change in employment volume. There were decreases in the number of persons employed in the information and communication sector, which decreased 7,700 or 4.1%. The public administration and defence, which was down 5,900 or 3.9%. And the other services activities category, which includes arts, entertainment and recreation sector, as well as other services such as hairdressers. This was down 4,400 or 3.7%. The accommodation and food service sector also declined 3,700 or 1.3%. The estimated total number of hours worked per week in Q2 2025 stood at 88.9 million hours, up by 1.6 million hours or 1.9% in the year. The chart here compares the change in hours worked per week by NACE sector. The sector with the highest increase in terms of hours worked was the construction sector, which increased 1 million hours compared to Q2 2024. While information and communication, as well as the accommodation and food service sector, had the largest decrease in hours worked, declining by 300,000 hours per week. The chart in this slide compares the breakdown of employed persons by the status of employment for the last 3 years. In the latest quarter, there were 16,700 more people who classified themselves as self-employed compared with 2 years ago, an increase of 4.9%. The largest increase was among the self-employed without paid employees. The number of employees was 2.1% higher and more than 2.4 million. The seasonally adjusted series for persons in employment over the last 4 years for males and females is shown in this slide here. And it demonstrates that overall there has been a steady growth in employment volume over that time period. However, the seasonally adjusted series also indicates that the number of females in employment in Q2 was 0.6% lower than last quarter, at just over 1,320,000, while the number of males in employment was 0.8% higher than in Q1 at almost 1.5 million. The chart on this slide here shows the proportion of employed persons who have indicated that they work at least some of their working time at home for the last 5 years. In Q2 2025, 1 in 5 people indicated that they mainly work from home, defined as at least 50% of their days worked in the previous 4 weeks, with a further 16% working from home sometimes. The combined level of 36% is higher than a year ago when the combined rate was 34%, but still lower than pandemic levels, when in Q2 2021, 40% of employed people said they worked some part at home. The sector with the largest proportion of workers who work mostly from home is information and communication, with more than 58% saying that they worked mostly from home. This is the only sector where the majority of their body usually work from home. Turning now to unemployment, and using standard ILO criteria, the number of persons aged 15 to 74 years who are unemployed in Q2 stood at 140,800, with an associated unemployment rate of those aged 15 to 74 at 4.8%. The number unemployed was up by 9,600 or 7.3% when compared with Q2 2024, when the unemployment rate was 4.6%. The seasonally adjusted estimate for the number of unemployed is 134,400, up by 3,400 or 2.6% on the previous quarter. and the seasonally adjusted unemployment rate in quarter 2 was 4.6%, up by 0.1 percentage points on the previous quarter. The chart in this slide shows the volume of unemployment by age groups for quarter 2 2024 and 25. Unemployment has increased for both the 15 to 24-year-olds, the 25 to 34-year-old cohorts. There were 8,500 more 25 to 34-year-olds and 5,100 15 to 24-year-olds classified as unemployed in Q2 2025 compared to a year earlier. The largest drop in unemployment was among the 35 to 44-year-olds. The chart here shows the 10-year trend in unemployment by the duration of unemployment. 31,800 people were classified as long-term unemployed, that is, unemployed for 12 months or longer, and this accounted for 22.6% of all unemployed people. This compared to 22.0% the previous year and 54.7% 10 years ago. The long-term unemployment rate for persons aged 15 to 74 stood at 1.2% in quarter 2. The chart in this slide shows the seasonally adjusted unemployment volume for males, females, and all persons aged 15 to 74 over the last 4 years. As previously mentioned, the seasonally adjusted unemployment estimates in Q2 2025 was 134,400, an increase of 2.6% on the previous quarter, and is the third consecutive quarter it has increased. The seasonally adjusted number of males unemployed is 73,500, up 7.1% from Q1. Conversely, the seasonally adjusted estimate for female unemployment fell 2.5% to 61,000. Turning attention to the labour force results, and the ILO-defined labour force comprised of all persons aged 15 and over who were classified as either employed or unemployed was estimated to be almost 2.96 million in quarter 2. That's up 2.5% on a year ago. The estimated participation rate for quarter 2 was 66.4%, up 0.3 percentage points. The seasonally adjusted participation rate is 66.2%. That's unchanged from the previous quarter. In terms of the change in the labour force, it has increased 73,500 to 2,958,900 in Q2. There was a positive demographic effect of 49,200 and a positive participation effect of 24,300 over the year. And this gave rise to a slight increase in the participation rate over the year of 0.3 percentage points to 66.4%. The seasonally adjusted labour force also increased by 17,200 or 0.6 percentage points on the quarter. The chart for males, females and total participation rate for Q2 2025 and the previous year is shown here. The male participation rate has increased by 0.7 percentage points to 71.6% in the year to quarter to Q2, while the female participation rate dropped slightly to 61.3% from 61.4%. The chart in this slide shows the estimated number of people in the labour force by age group and shows that there's been growth in the labour market participation among all age categories in the year to Q2 2025. The highest percentage gain was among the 45 to 54-year-olds, where participation increased 25,300 to 679,800. Youth participation increased 5,700 to 374,000 on the year. The annual percentage change in the labour force by citizenship is shown in this slide. The largest total increase in the labour force came from Irish citizens, up 37,300, followed by the rest of the world cohort, up 31,200. In percentage terms, however, this equates to an increase of 1.6% and 11.7% respectively. There was a 0.3% increase in the labour force participants from the UK and a 1.8% increase from citizens in EU member states. The annual change in those not in the labour force is also shown in this slide. The chart in this slide shows the seasonally adjusted participation rates for males, females, and for all persons aged 15 and over a 4-year period, and shows that labour market participation has been reasonably stable now for the last 2 years, and that the current levels exceed the 2021 levels by more than 3 percentage points. This is particularly the case among females, where the current participation rate of 61.0% which is 4 percentage points higher than the 2021 value of 54.0%. However, the current rate is down 0.7 percentage points on the last quarter. The corresponding value for males is 71.8% in Q2 2025, is also higher now than in Q2 2021 by 2.2 percentage points, and is up 0.3 percentage points on the quarter. The estimated number of people who are classified as not in the labour force was almost 2.5 million, up 15,000 or 1.0% on the previous year. The potential additional labour force, that is people who would like to work but are either available but are not actively seeking work, or are seeking work but are not immediately available to begin, was 118,000, an increase of 4,700 or 3.8% compared with a year ago. Labour market slack, which comprises unemployed, underemployed and the potential additional labour force, is shown in this slide here for Q2 2025 as well as 24 and 2023. The total for the labour market slack in Q2 was 412,400, an increase of 16,700 or 4.2% on the same quarter last year. The increase was seen among the part-time, underemployed and unemployed, rising 11,800 and 9,600 respectively. Focusing now on young people, those aged 15 to 24 years in the labour market. The employment rate was 46.7%, that's down 1.0 percentage points. The unemployment rate was 13.2%, up 1.2 percentage points. The participation rate is 53.8%, down 0.4 percentage points, and the NEET rate, that is the percentage of 15 to 24-year-olds not in employment, education or training, was 5.9%, an increase of 0.7 percentage points. And so in summary, the labour force and employment is an all-time high at more than 2.9 million and 2.8 million respectively. Unemployment increased 7.3% to 140,800, and that represents an unemployment rate of 4.8%. The youth unemployment rate for those aged 15 to 24 was 13.2%, the highest since Q2 2021. The largest increases in employment were in the construction sector, while information and communication had the largest decrease in employment. That concludes the results presentation for the Labour Force Survey for Q2 2025. LFS quarterly results for Q3 2025 are scheduled for publication in November 2025. Thank you for watching.